All right, well, good afternoon and welcome to episode 9 of the Market Mortgage Update with Mike and Joe. And we're super thrilled today that we have got a special guest here with us. Today we have Theo Finn, who is the president of the Greater Rochester Housing Partnership. So welcome, Theo.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. And you know, this is a special month for it. This is Fair Housing Month. So this is front and center for all of us in the real estate industry. And I think, just a couple, quick stats. I had someone pulled together just some things that I think are important just to comment on before we really get, started. I mean, this is, this year marks the 55th anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act. Was passed, back in 1968. And I think a couple things to really kind of point out, just to level set what we want to talk about today, is kind of where we're at now in 2023. And to kind of put this into context, really the overall rate of homes that were owned in the U.S. But at the end of the second quarter of 2022 hit 66%. So that's a pretty solid stat. But when you break it down and you really look at who actually owns those homes, there is a disparity that exists, and it's something that we need to recognize, and more importantly, we need to address. And just to share, what some of those, stats are, 75% of those homes were owned by white households, 45% by Black households, 48% by Hispanic households. So really there is a disparity there that we really need to recognize and talk through what steps can we take to bring those numbers up. So with that being said, what I wanted to kind of talk about first is maybe, Theo, you can share with us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you're at today, and what are some of your goals for the partnership?
Sure. Thank you. So yeah, very happy to be here. So thank you for the invitation.
Sure.
As I mentioned, it's kind of like staggering as I think about it. I've been working in the affordable housing and community development space for most of my career, and that's about 20 years now. A lot of that in the city of Rochester, living in the city, working mostly for the City of Rochester initiatives, and have worked in the homeownership and affordable rental space, and that sort of covers what we do at the Housing Partnership. We are a nonprofit lender, so we provide financing for affordable housing development projects, and through that we try to support the development of affordable rental housing in the region. And then we have, for over 2 decades, been a developer providing affordable homeownership housing in the city as well as in Monroe County in recent years. So we have been doing a lot historically in this homeownership space, and that work has been particularly relevant in this very tight market that we have, and we focus that on serving buyers who maybe have traditionally not had access to those opportunities, so low and moderate income folks, and lots of success with buyers who, African American, Hispanic buyers who have not maybe caught up to some of those stats that you mentioned earlier.
Right. That's great. Can you give us maybe a current example of what you guys are currently working on now?
Sure. So in the homeownership space, we have sort of 2 ways that we do that. One is through acquisition, rehab, resale. So we have, for over 20 years, acquired vacant properties in city neighborhoods. We have expanded that to Monroe County on a limited basis, and we work with various partners to rehab them for purchase by low and moderate income first-time home buyers. We've done over 850 homes in that period of time in the city through a program called Home Rochester, and in the county through a program called Make Monroe Home. And so we are aiming to bring 15 new homes into the inventory in the coming year for first-time home buyers through that. Yes, exactly. Most of those in the city, with a few opportunities in Monroe County. And then we have also done new construction for first-time home buyers over the years, and we're really excited. For the past year, we've been partnering with the City of Rochester, with a home builder partner, Atlas Contractors, LLC, who we've done a lot of work with in the past, with the Ibero-American Development Corporation to build 24 new homes in a targeted neighborhood in the city through a program called Buy the Block, and making those homes available at affordable prices for first-time home buyers. They're new construction, different models, and they are being sold at a set price. There's no bidding,
Sure.
in the mix, but folks need to apply and can be selected to purchase those homes. So we're trying to make a dent, in the supply side issue in that way, and really serve a particular market through that work.
That's fantastic. That's great. I mean, I'm going to turn this over to Joe in a minute, but what you talked about, Theo, was obviously just, the steps that you're taking not only to help, buyers, but also to create homes, to build homes for them to purchase. We hear every week, the inventory, particularly in the Greater Rochester and Syracuse area that we serve as well, is that the inventory is very tight. The bidding that is going on for each of these homes is just making it really, really tough. And Joe, perhaps maybe you could kind of share a little bit of what we're seeing here these first few months in regards to the houses that are being listed, what they're being sold for, what they're appraising for, to put that into context.
Yeah, so actually, interestingly enough, Rochester was in February tied for first with Manchester, Nashua, New Hampshire as the hottest real estate market in the country.
Yeah.
And the way what they look at is the average number of views per property, as well as the time on market. So on average, properties in Rochester are getting 2.6 times the amount of views on Realtor.com as anywhere else in the rest of the country. And then average days on market was 31 days, which actually is about a month less than the national median. So, those numbers alone are enough to kind of, if you're not feeling it already in the market, know that the market is hot and it's very competitive. So in March, we track the average over list by zip code, and in Monroe County, houses were going 14.5% over list.
Mm-hmm.
In Monroe and surrounding counties was 13%. That's up from the month before. From February, we were around 8% in Monroe and 5.5% in Monroe and surrounding. And then in down the road in Onondaga County, the homes are still going over ask, but you're looking at 4% and 3% over ask versus where we are now. So a little bit less competition in those markets. Brighton, 14625 zip code, was the hottest market for us in March. It's seen 38% over ask. And then West Irondequoit, interestingly enough, we did 10 transactions in West Irondequoit, and the average over ask was 32%. So a lot of times when I throw these numbers out there, we may have one or two houses in that zip code. We had 10 in that West Irondequoit zip code and still averaged 33% over ask. So that's quite a big sampling there. So again, everything's kind of the same as what we've been talking about for the last 9 episodes. We haven't seen much reprieve, but I know there's a lot of optimism for listings coming on the market in this second half of the year. And hopefully that changes things a little bit.
Theo, I mean, obviously when you were just, talking about over the past, we said 5 or 6 years,
820, but
No, in terms of with the housing partnership you brought on over what? How many new homes have you brought on?
Yeah, over 1,000 probably in the past 2 decades, and about 850 of those have been acquisition, rehab, resale through us.
So when you put that into context, you're doing your part, to try to bring more homes onto this marketplace. We find, to comment on what Joe just shared, every weekend we hear about offers that are being made, 15, 20 offers. And so one family got that house, but there's 19 others that didn't. So they're back into the pool again, continuing to look. As we talked about this, one of the things that we all know is that buying a home is one of the key ways to build generational wealth. Theo, maybe you could kind of share, what the vision is from your perspective to help people achieve that dream, because it really is at the backbone of them being able to achieve that wealth for not only for their families, but families to come.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around
Yeah,
that?
no, that's definitely, a big part of the mission of the work that we do in that
Right.
space. And I think, for a long time, the values in Rochester were flat. So while folks are building equity in their home, they weren't seeing the appreciation. What we've seen in the past few years is they've also seen the appreciation. And I think some folks have really benefited from, that initial investment and being able to then move on to something bigger and actually make some money off of their home. But yeah, I think it's a very important way for, to create housing stability for one thing that feeds into so many other critical outcomes for families and children. It helps stabilize neighborhoods, and then it gives families an asset that they can build up, draw on to do things in life, and then pass on to the future, and hopefully improve the economic circumstances over the long term. So, yeah, definitely a big part of it.
Right. And when I just again was looking at, for instance, these past few years, there's just been a significant increase in the amount of homes that have been sold to investors. And that number, that really was on the rise. The past few years, and obviously there's a place for that, and there's a need for it. But what are some of the steps that you think we can take to maybe try to shift the dial a bit, if you will, more towards giving these first-time home buyers an opportunity to buy a house in this environment?
Yeah, so I'm sure there are other methods than these couple, but we engage with different partners like lending institutions, and there's a land bank in Rochester that you have an opportunity when you have a house come into your back into your ownership,
Right.
that you can choose whether to just put that out to the private market and be
Right.
bid on by investors, and then
Right.
maybe they win out, or to really specialize in working with an organization like ours, or making it available to a first-time home buyer if it's appropriate,
Right.
an appropriate house for a first-time home buyer to come into. And the same with the land bank and other entities like that may be able to gain ownership of properties in our city. If they can prioritize that as a strategy, I think that's one way. I think, maybe there are some other ways through grant programs or added down payment assistance that can give homeowners a little bit of leverage,
Sure.
Over some of those investors. But the numbers still seem to be a little bit crazy. That
Right.
I'm not sure that that's even proven to be that effective in this market. And, I think sometimes the grants themselves can be deterrents in terms of an offer being accepted, because it's often perceived as another contingency or hurdle that could be, in the mix for closing. But certainly those things, I think, help give
Right.
potential homeowners a leg up.
Yeah. To that point, one of the things that we've tried to do here, this is specific to GRB, is knowing that the grant can be perceived, that this is going to take additional time. It's going to prevent the transaction from closing. Maybe, Joe, you can kind of speak to this. Some of the steps that we take here to really try to vet out those buyers that are looking to take advantage of these grants, and steps that we take to try to make sure it doesn't impact the timing of the closing.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been one of the top utilizers of the Federal Home Loan Bank's Homebuyer Dream Program over the past 3 years, and our loan officers do a great job of vetting those borrowers out up front. And there's instances where if the borrower is not relying on that money to qualify, they don't need to write it into the contract, because they could close without it. So it's not a contingency of the contract, and that helps to kind of help their offer win. One of the things we did recently, not so much on the grant side, but we rolled out a fully underwritten pre-approval program, and that allows us to issue a mortgage commitment to our borrowers, basically fully underwrite their file up front, issue them a mortgage commitment subject to only them finding a house, and a satisfactory appraisal on that house. And initially we did this for borrowers who could put 10% down, and we've actually rolled that back and opened it up to FHA borrowers, VA borrowers, USDA, Sunny Mae, those borrowers that can only put the minimum down, because we want to give them the opportunity to help their offer stand out as well. so that if it's in a pile of offers and the rest of them are pre-qualifications, but there's a GRB pre-approval with mortgage commitment there, it's going to help that offer kind of rise to the top of the pile there. And, obviously price is always going to be important, so they have to be aggressive in their offer, but it's something else to help them stand out a little bit.
Okay. So thanks, Joe. So Theo, we absolutely have a lot of realtors that are listening to this podcast, and they're probably thinking, hey, you know what? I have a buyer. I've got several buyers. Boy, I'd really like to have them learn more about could they qualify for any of these programs? How do they get enrolled? How does a potential buyer get started?
So for our houses, all of our buyers that purchase in the city of Rochester have to be approved through the city of Rochester's first-time homebuyer program.
Okay.
So we always tell them that's your first step. Even if you haven't identified the house, go and get approved to make sure that you will be eligible and that you're in that mix already. And through that, they can access down payment and closing cost assistance through the city's first-time homebuyer program as well. In the county, we work with the Housing Council at Pathstone to do that pre-approval for us. So that's really the first step. And then the next step would be to keep an eye on those upcoming opportunities. So we have a website, it's homerochester.org, where our acquisition, our rehab properties can be seen, whether they're upcoming or available.
Okay.
You can see that there. Sometimes those homes are multiple listed. If our community partners haven't successfully marketed them within a certain period of time, they do get multiple listed, so you would see them on the multiple listing. We have a person on our team who sends out a weekly email to interested folks, and realtors are on that list, and individual buyers can get on that list. So, if anyone wants to be on that list, reach out and we'll get you on that. And that's a weekly update about what's upcoming, what's currently available, and what are the parameters in terms of income restrictions, price, et cetera. And then with the new construction, this is really wonderful timing. I don't know when this will be aired, but we are having the first set of open houses for the 6 model homes that have been developed this coming weekend, April 15th and 16th.
Great timing.
Yeah, exactly. From 1 to 3 p.m.
Okay.
And so, we're trying to get the word out very broadly so that prospective buyers can come out, see the models, and then the way that it works is all of these model homes have already been matched with a buyer, but we're building another 18 of these models of different types they'll be done over the next year, and the application window for those 18 homes is going to open this week as well, and there will be a period of time to get applications in for that. So if this is being publicized through the city's website because it's under their Buy the Block programs. If you go to the city and type in Buy the Block, all of the details and the application are there. But people should come out and check the homes out, and we
need to start to subscribe to this newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And exactly, because we're talking to the agents all the time, and this has been so informative.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is it's 15 houses a year plus the 18. So it's not like hundreds and hundreds.
Right.
It's not
Gotta
an
start with
endless
one.
supply.
Start
Exactly. Yeah. But
Right.
we do want to certainly, get the word out broadly.
So to shift gears a bit, when we were chatting before we started the podcast, is it's one thing to help somebody get in a home, to help them build wealth, but it's also another thing you got to be able to keep the house as well. So maybe you can kind of speak to what are some of the services you guys provide to if someone does fall on hard times, to help them keep the house and to work through that.
Yeah, so we don't provide any of those services directly. We work with partners, and we try to make sure that we're proactive with sharing information about our past home buyer, about these services to past home buyers. So we focus on 2 things. One is maintenance. What should you be doing regularly to keep up the integrity of your home so that you don't end up with a costly repair down the road? Second, if you do need to repair it, hopefully you can figure out how to self-finance that, or tap into a line of credit or something. But if you can't, often there are some grants available, through partner organizations or municipalities. And when we know what those are, we will share that information. Rehab grants, or sometimes there are grants for, remediating lead hazards, which are not an issue with our homes, but for folks on the, open market that have homes, that can be a way to deal with certain issues. And then the other is just foreclosure prevention, because over years, circumstances change, and folks can find themselves in a situation where they may be facing falling behind on their mortgage, and there are many services available through local organizations. The Housing Council at Pathstone, Empire Justice, CCCS, I think are the main three who we refer people to, if get in early, have a conversation, figure out how you can possibly get a loan modification so that you can hold on to that asset. And we try to communicate that to folks. And I think it's important. We're talking about getting people into homes so they can build wealth, but then they have to keep it and, keep it as a viable, good opportunity. So.
Right. That's great. Well, I mean, Theo, I have learned a ton here, today. And I think it's one of those things that, we really want to, part of what we do is we have to educate, we have to inform. I find that it's important that we need to continually remind people of what all those resources are. I mean, just a quick side story. I can remember when, my son bought a house in Cornhill. We've been doing this for 32 years. I was not aware until he moved in there that Cornhill provides a revolving loan fund to help provide repairs if you live there. And I think there's a lot of these gems that are out there and resources that are available to people that we got to continue to, educate people on what's out there, particularly in this environment.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, Joe, anything else you want to add in regards to, obviously we're excited about the rollout of this pre-approval program. Obviously we're knee deep into the home buyer dream season right now, which is going very, very well. And obviously we're moving right into the spring housing market as well. And I've heard it's going to be 80 on Friday.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to that?
That's what I've heard as well. I mean, seeing the sun for the last week has been great, and kind of shifting the mood from gray to sunny and bright.
This might be the only week that, we actually have GRB sunscreen. Doesn't get a lot of use, but for this week we might get some use out of it as well. So, all right. Well, Theo, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for being here with us. And again, learned a lot just in our brief chat this afternoon, and really enjoyed spending time with you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Both of you.
All right.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.